Yes, please.
Do you expect Ron DeSantis to appoint Laura Trump to Senator Marco Rubio's seat?
No, I don't. I probably don't, but I don't know. Ron's doing a good job. That's his choice, nothing to do with me. Laura's unbelievable. I mean, she was incredible. She is so highly respected by women. I mean, even her workout routines are through the roof.
It's a crazy world, crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you. It's a crazy world. It's a crazy world. Somebody's gotta have to save you.
All right, guys, it is December 17th, 2024. I'm Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. We are live streaming, as always, on Rumble, on YouTube, on Locals. Post-game show, rubinreport.locals.com. And as you can see, my voice is back. I was a little banged up yesterday after the big Rubin Report holiday party on Saturday. Somehow the banged up part rolled into Monday, and I was not feeling great yesterday, but we pulled off the show. And I have to say that I think the reason I'm feeling so good right now is immediately after the show yesterday, we went up to West Palm Beach and I sat down with Tony Robbins, the truly legendary life coach, speaker, motivational master, and we interviewed him. It's going to be our first interview for January. We thought it would be a really nice way to kick off the new year with some positivity and life guidance and all that good stuff. But I'm telling you, sitting down with this guy for an hour, I felt so full of the goodness and the good stuff after that I am completely ready to go today. So let's dive in. The big thing we're going to cover up top, I would say this is a very wide and dense show we got for you today. The big thing up top, you may have seen some clips of this already on social media, but Trump gave a press conference yesterday, his sort of first real, like, open-ended press conference since winning the election on virtually everything. And I have to say, I think he, at this moment right now, is better than he's ever been. He is so confident and clear and clean. We're going to show you a bunch of the clips. The answers nailed it. There was still some of the humor there. You saw in the cold open there, talking about Laura Trump working out. But it was all there, and you really can feel this thing coming together. So we're going to talk a bit about that. We're going to talk about some of the people he's bringing in, like RFK. And then there's some crazy news out of Canada right now, which is that Justin Trudeau might be resigning. His government might fall, which it could not happen to a more deserving person. And then a woman who does not know what a woman is, Ketanji Brown Jackson, one of the Supreme Court justices, she's now on Broadway, apparently. So, you always have a chance. But all right, let's just dive right in. Trump gave this big press conference. We have about 4 or 5 clips from it. And it was the best of Trump because it was all over the place. It was clear that these were not prepared answers, that these were not prepared questions. It was what we want out of public officials. And I would say a media that was asking kind of, for the most part, pretty good questions. There were 1 or 2 that were a little silly, and Trump answered it appropriately. But here, he's asked about pardoning Eric Adams. As you know, the Department of Justice is going after Eric Adams. There seems to be a feeling amongst a lot of people that it was because Eric Adams really turned against the Democrats and was like this sanctuary city thing and state things not working anymore. And then he started calling out some of their nonsense. So here's Trump on Eric Adams.
Consider pardoning Eric Adams?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of it all, but it seems, like being upgraded in an airplane many years ago. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded. They see you're all stars, and they say, I want to upgrade that person from NBC. I'm going to upgrade him. And that would mean you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. I don't know. Somehow.
I hope not.
I'd have to see it because I don't know the facts. I think he was treated, it's very interesting when he essentially went against what was happening with the migrants coming in. And, he made some pretty strong statements like, this is not sustainable. I said, you know what, he'll be indicted soon. And I said it, not as a prediction, a little bit lightheartedly, but I said it. I said, he's going to be indicted. And a few months later, he got indicted. So, yeah, I would certainly look at it.
Right, so that really seems to be what's going on here. They are looking to indict him, the DOJ, because he got upgraded on some flights. Now, maybe there's some other stuff there. We will find out. But the notion that this was all happening as he started criticizing the Democrats, and it is Joe Biden who's a Democrat, who apparently is still the president of the United States, and do you think that they maybe politicized the Justice Department? Do you think that Donald Trump believes that? This thing about upgrading flights, I mean, this happens to people all the time. I don't think it's the craziest thing ever for somebody like a mayor of a big city to get on a plane, and then they're looking at who they can upgrade, and perhaps they just said to him, hey, do you want to get upgraded on this flight? I don't think that means anything nefarious is happening. As Trump said, it probably happens to famous people or well-known people. I don't think it's ever happened to me yet, but one of these days I'll get the upgrade. I'd like the upgrade. It wouldn't kill anybody to throw Dave Rubin the upgrade. But largely the point there is really about the Eric Adams evolution, because it is fairly obvious. You know, always talk about how Bill Maher is not going to get there. I called out Stephen A. Smith. I think he is going to get there and be a Republican soon enough. I think Eric Adams will be leaving. Mark my words. Let's mark it right now. Eric Adams will be a Republican by, I'm going to say by June. I'm going pretty bullish. He will leave the Democratic Party and be a Republican by June. Watch on that. This is also connected, of course, because what got Eric Adams in trouble was he started coming out against the sanctuary city stuff. And of course, he deserves plenty of blame for ushering it in, so I'm not giving him a free pass on that. But what's connected to that is this insane story about the border wall and how the Biden administration is now selling parts of the border wall to be built by Trump. They're selling it to delay Trump's ability to do just that. Go.
But now we ordered an additional 200 miles of wall. It's very expensive. And now it's about double the price of what it would have been 6 years ago. And the administration is trying to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar, knowing that we're getting ready to put it up. And what they're doing is really an act. It's almost a criminal act. They know we're going to use it, and if we don't have it, we're going to have to rebuild it, and it'll cost double what it cost years ago, and that's hundreds of millions of dollars.
I think you could probably make an argument that actually criminal what the Biden administration is doing right now. They created the border problem, right? 50 some odd executive actions the day that Biden got into office. Something like 12 to 15 million illegals here. We don't have to go into all of that again. You guys know all that stuff. And now, as Trump is going to come in, the Biden administration is still hampering them as much as possible. The thing that I think if you were to argue, you know, the election really was the election on reality and mainstream media versus online media. I think that was like sort of the meta thing. But if you were to look at like the most granular thing that I think woke people up, it was the border. And in these last moments, this ridiculous administration is doing everything possible to hamper the incoming administration. And it's just embarrassing. And it's just, you know, Joe, I know you're not really there, but you're just mocking whatever's left, whatever shred of decency would be attached to your legacy. You're just absolutely shredding it right in front of our faces. Now, this was one of my favorite moments. A reporter asked Trump about what he might do as it pertains to everything going on with Iran in the Middle East right now. And this is Trump at his best.
President.
Are you entertaining the idea of preemptive strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities? Against Iran's nuclear facilities?
I mean, it's a wonderful question, but am I going to do preemptive strikes? Why would I say that? Can you imagine if I said yes or no? You'd say, that was strange that he answered that way. Am I going to do preemptive strikes on Iran? Is that a serious question? How could I answer a question like that?
Do you agree with our
Say it?
Would you be in support of Israeli strikes on Iran's
How could I tell you a thing like that now? It's just so, you don't talk about that before something may or may not happen. I'm not going to comment on the Putin question, but I will comment on Bibi. We had a very good talk. We discussed what is going to happen, and I'll be very available on January 20th, and we'll see. As you know, I gave warning that if these hostages aren't back home by that date, all hell's going to break out, and very strong.
Man, I am so happy that man is going to be president again. That is right. and true, and there's still, we think, 7 American hostages potentially alive. Putting aside, if you don't care about any of the, almost 90 some odd Israeli hostages, at least as an American, you should care about the American hostages. And already, I think, if I read something correctly this morning, it was a rumor going around online that Bibi is actually in Egypt right now, which means that the negotiations are getting real close, and it has jack shit to do with the guy who's sitting in the Oval Office right now. It's because everyone knows Trump is in. As he said, I will unleash hell if you don't release the hostages by January 20th. So Trump coming in is already paying dividends. But the earlier part of that, where it's like, I'm not going to tell you, are we going to have preemptive strikes? I'm not going to tell you what the Israelis are going to do. It's like, that's actually transparency. Instead of bullshitting us, I'm going to tell them this and then we're going to do this, and which is all fake and nonsensical and ridiculous. He's actually telling the truth. We have some sort of strategy. There's a peace through strength that we're bringing back to America, but we're not going to tell you, idiots, all the things that we are doing or contemplating doing or anything else. And that is just right and good and real. And hallelujah that he is back. Here's just a compilation of him bringing the heat.
Well, I thought it was a hoax when it happened, the Duke situation. I didn't believe the woman, as you know, and they destroyed the lives of these kids. They destroyed, and I don't care what they got. Their lives have been destroyed. Their lives have been shortened, and we're looking to find out. If you look at autism, so 30 years ago I've heard numbers of like 1 in 200,000, 1 in 100,000, and now I'm hearing numbers of 1 in 100. So something's wrong. There's something wrong. And we're going to find out about it.
United Healthcare shooting, the shooting of the CEO in New York. Can you give us your thoughts about that? And what do you make of the reaction around the suspected shooter? Does that tell you anything about how people
I think it's a terrible thing. I think it's really terrible that some people seem to admire him, like him.
Can you comment on the drones that are flying around New Jersey ports? It seems like the American people have a big disconnect.
The government knows what is happening. Through the Department of Government Efficiency, Elon Musk has been working very hard with various people, including Vivek. We're going to eliminate hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud. And I can only tell you, I'll give you a little early report, they're finding things that you wouldn't even believe.
Like, that's just a couple quick hits there, but he's just real. He comments on the Duke rape allegations, which now, if you remember that story from what was it, 15 years ago, all bullshit. This autism question and the rate of vaccines that are increasing to newborns over the years and the schedule that we put them on, it's worth discussing. Some honesty about the shooting and Mangione and the people that are praising him right now, which there's a huge movement online related to that. The government knows about the drones. Yes, we covered this story yesterday. The government, I believe, is allowed to have some level of secrecy, but because there are things that if we all knew all the time, it could cause us all to go crazy, but it can't just blatantly lie to our face all the time, like we showed you yesterday when people see these obvious drones flying over their houses, and then you get Adam Kinzinger, who's basically a deep state operative, to go on CNN and tell you it's a plane. Like, don't see what you can plainly see in front of your face. And then they're already, I love this, the fact that Elon and Vivek are already, DOGE isn't even an official department yet, but somehow they're getting access to things during this transition period, and they are finding incredible amounts of waste. And I think they will have a limited window in which to really cut a lot of stuff before the machine fights back, the empire strikes back. But I think they're going to do it. Here's another great moment. So SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son has pledged to double his $100 billion investment in the U.S., and Trump tried to get him to go a little further.
I'm excited to go, and we were discussing, and President Trump said, Masa, double that is not enough. Maybe, go for more, right?
That's what I'm going to ask him right now. Would you make it $200 billion instead of that? He can actually, believe it or not, he can actually afford to do that. Would you do that?
Well, my promise is 100, but he's now asking to do more. I think with your leadership, my partnership with you, with your support, I will try to make it happen.
That's good.
All right.
200. He'll make it happen.
Do you see what's happening, guys? Like, we are so back, it's ridiculous. Now, I know all sorts of crazy things can happen till January 20th, and I know all sorts of crazy things can happen after January 20th, but the reset is here. Like, the smiles on their face as they're having, a largely silly negotiation, but here's a guy going, I'm gonna throw in $100 billion, and maybe we'll make it 200, and I will try, and you can see that the CEO's being honest, like, under your leadership, maybe it is possible. And why wasn't it possible under the previous leadership? Well, I'm starting to think that the previous leadership wasn't so great. There's another piece of all of this, which is, as you know, my main concern, say a year and a half ago about Trump, was that he would not be able to staff properly. He was going to have too many enemies and all of those things. But that has changed. The culture has shifted, and Trump can clearly see that.
Meeting with who? Apple CEO Tim Cook.
I did have dinner with Tim Cook. I had dinner with sort of almost all of them, and the rest are coming. And this is one of the big differences, I think, we were talking about it before, one of the big differences between the first term. In the first term, everybody was fighting me. In this term, everybody wants to be my friend. I don't know. My personality changed or something. But I had, as you know, I had Sundar from Google, but I also had Sergey. Nobody reported that. Sergey is the owner, the primary owner, along with his friend, as you know. And Sergey was here also. I can't believe you didn't pick that one up. Nobody picked that up.
So the point here is, guys, not only do we know that the choices basically for the cabinets have all been pretty damn good. We can all have our disagreements, or I don't like this particular one or whatever, but I think largely, and you can see it, the media, besides the Hegseth thing, the media doesn't even know what to do about this stuff because it's been pretty freaking solid. But it's not just that. It's that these business people, that Zuckerberg is now coming to show up, and the heads of Google and these other companies, and you've got banks pledging $1 billion. So everyone was against him first time around, and he didn't know how to staff properly and all those things. And now it's all completely different, and competence and good governance is going to be back in about, well, that would be about 30 some odd days. Guys, let's talk about Lumen.me for a moment, and then we'll have more on the system that isn't gonna let Trump just roll right in there and do everything he wants, or at least it will try to stop him from doing everything he wants. Let me tell you guys about Lumen. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. Your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into the fuel that keeps you going. Because your metabolism is the center of everything your body does, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, and more. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Rubin to get 15% off your Lumen, or just click the link below. That's lumen.me/Rubin for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Okay, so the big legal story of the week we covered yesterday. Let me just recap it real quick here from AP News. Breaking: ABC News agrees to pay $15 million to Trump's presidential library to settle defamation suit filed by President-elect. And we'll throw you to that 15-second clip of George Stephanopoulos completely lying about Donald Trump's legal trouble and what caused all this. Go ahead.
I still get judged for it today.
I'm asking you a very simple question.
And I answered it. You're shaming me for my political choices.
I'm asking you a question about why you endorse someone who's been found liable for rape.
It was not a criminal court. This was
a civil court.
It was a civil court. And by the way,
okay, so to be clear, George Stephanopoulos, who again, he's a Democrat activist who worked in the Bill Clinton White House and then becomes somehow the head basically of ABC News. Donald Trump was not found criminally liable for rape. He was found civilly liable for defamation to E. John Carroll. Now, as I said yesterday, he probably could have sued her for defamation, but okay, let's put that aside. That has now happened, and as I understand it, ABC has to pay $15, and I think $1 million of that maybe has to come from Stephanopoulos himself. You should fact check that. I heard that this morning. But Jake Tapper over on CNN is very concerned that this won't be the end of Trump going after the media, which I don't have much of a problem with.
We should note, Kristen, I don't want to overstate Trump's friendliness and genial attitude at this press conference, because this weekend ABC News agreed to pay $16 million, including legal fees, to settle a defamation lawsuit brought by Trump against the network and their anchor, George Stephanopoulos. And that obviously will not be the end of this campaign against the media, a legal campaign against the media. This is wildly ridiculous.
Well, one of the things to keep in mind here is that Donald Trump feels like he won. I mean, this weekend, by having a settlement with ABC, one that many people did not think was going to come to fruition. They thought that this would end up in court, or that it would certainly not be a settlement in which ABC paid $16 million and issued a public apology, which was part of this, has been a situation which has empowered and emboldened.
Okay, so there's some interesting stuff here. Tapper obviously is concerned because he has been at CNN one of the chief liars about Trump, whether it's very fine people or all of the stuff over the years, right? So he's concerned that he's looking over there, looking at his former employer, ABC News, that's where he used to work, and going, oh shit, George just got in trouble. And yeah, I was right. Apparently George has to pay $1 million himself, then it's 15 from ABC. That's where they came up with the 16. But Tapper is kind of protecting his own ass. That's why he's calling it ridiculous. Now, I do want to say, I am a free speech guy, right? But we do have very, very narrow and specific things that you are allowed to do under the law as it pertains to slander and libel, right? So whether it's written or spoken. And in this case, it was so obvious that George Stephanopoulos was lying that ABC felt, boy, the best way to not get in a protracted lawsuit where, by the way, there's going to be all sorts of discovery. And that means we're going to be able to see ABC News reporters and workers. We're going to be able to see their emails, their correspondences, their texts with each other. Did we do other things that were dishonest as it relates to the campaign or Donald Trump or anything else? So is it worth $15 million and an apology to basically have our reputation somewhat intact? Does that sound totally conspiratorial to you? Doesn't to me. Here's a little bit more from two guys that should be shamed into high hell, Brian Stelter and Jim Acosta over there on CNN.
I just feel, and I wonder how you feel about that aspect of all of this. I mean, to me, it seems this is a time for our industry to stand firm. And we're going to have a very important job to do. And that's not putting us on a pedestal or anything like that, but we're going to have a very important job to do, because Trump is not going to change his ways when he gets back in the Oval Office. He's going to continue to say things that need to be fact-checked. And you can't have the news industry worrying about this sort of stuff when they're just simply doing their jobs.
Well, if some bend the knee, others have to stand up straighter. The former Time magazine editor Richard Stengel said this morning, Trump has sued dozens of publications and media outlets in the past, trying to, quote, intimidate the press into self-censorship, not to actually win any particular case. He did win in this case with a big payment, but that broader concern about self-censorship is one that I know many viewers and readers are worried about. And ultimately, Jim, as you know, we work for them. We work for the viewers, not for anybody else.
That's right. All right, Brian Stelter, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll be right back.
No, Brian. No. Sorry, Jim. No, thank you, Brian, very much. No, you don't work for the viewers. You work for the people that pay your checks to lie. Brian, that's why they fired you from reliable sources on your network and only brought you back because they were like, oh, people at least talk about him. He's an absolute potato-like clown, but at least people talk about him, so it's better than putting on a nobody on the network. I also think it's interesting that Jim Acosta suddenly is like, he said in future tense, we're going to have a very important job to do. How about you could have tried to do that job, say, over the last 4 years with the current administration, unless, call me crazy, you guys are Democrats and not really reporters. Now, in a hilarious twist, Simone Sanders, who's an analyst over at MSNBC, she used to work for Bernie Sanders, and then I think she worked for, was it Biden campaign or Hillary campaign? We'll check on that in just a second. Did she work? I guess it was the Biden campaign after Bernie. Here she is basically repeating the exact same lie that forced ABC to pay $15 million to Donald Trump. And this is yesterday on MSNBC.
I would just say, this feels like it has a real chilling effect. Shout out to the standards department. Okay, standards is always making sure that we are keeping the bar high and substantive and accurate. But what George Stephanopoulos said in that interview, it seems to hold up with what the judge said after the fact. And now his news organization and himself George Stephanopoulos himself is paying $1 million of his own money to the lawyers, and ABC at $15 million. It's insane.
Look, I don't like the idea of people being sued over speech and everything else, but these people do need to be smacked around a little bit. And it's like, Donnie, maybe call up the lawyer again for an easy one on that. That is not. She's completely wrong. She gives a shout out to the standards people. She's talking about the lawyers that make sure that they say things that are true on air, and they give them a very wide leash on that. These are the people who during commercial breaks have to call up The View and say, Sonny's gonna have to issue a retraction 7 times this week over this, that, the other thing. But what she just said there, what George said seemed to hold up. No, it didn't. He was not criminally liable for rape. It was a civil suit about defamation. I'm not a lawyer, but why can't I figure that out? And why did I do that in a Southern accent? I don't know. Over on MSNBC, well, this isn't on MSNBC, but this is Stephanie Ruhle of the televised mental institution known as MSNBC, and she's very concerned about misinformation, not the misinformation she's been spreading, but that we are spreading about her.
The Pew Center found that 54% of adults say they get their news from social media. How does the media, with journalistic integrity, combat this misinformation that is so proficient now in our culture?
Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. It's so hard. And so I would start with this idea that we trust relationships, not information. So we need to connect with the people who are reading us, watching us, listening to us. Because if you make a mistake and you have a trusted relationship with your audience, they'll forgive you. Right. But you have to be honest and upfront about it. But the problem that we're dealing with right now is so much more complicated than that, right? If I say something and do something and you don't like it, right? I haven't left Twitter. I don't plan to. And if you don't like it, then you have every right to call me out and say it's bullshit and you don't like the way I sound, you don't like what I say. The problem is that our enemies, quote unquote, are lying about us. I mean, this week I had someone splice different pieces of what I said and they left out the punchline. But there's nothing I can do about that. And the reason we have to care is because this is what they want. Yeah.
Lady, get an effing mirror. We've been through this before. She is right about that it's up to the viewer to decide if you're honest and call you out on it and the rest of it, which is why I have no problem issuing corrections or retractions when I stumble over something or get something incorrect or I'm confused about a date or whatever it might be. I actually like doing it, as you know, right? Like it's keeping me on my toes. And ultimately, you guys would decide. The proof is in the pudding. The reason their numbers are dumping out is not because somebody online clipped something of her and left the punchline out. It's because you guys have lied about everything. You told us the country was racist. You told us boys were girls. You told us we were all white supremacists. All of the stuff, and enough of us have had enough. I love how the question, the interviewer, I have no idea who that was. How do you do it to maintain your journalistic integrity? You work at MSNBC. It's like these people they just all deserve each other. But sorry, Stephanie Ruhle, like you're not going to have much of a career once MSNBC fires you because nobody really cares about you. No one is turning you on being like, oh, I think that woman brings me the truth. They turn it on because by default, a certain set of people of a certain age turn on cable news and then there's a show and there's a chair there and it doesn't matter who's sitting in the chair and you just repeat the stuff. So you suck. Let's talk about BHMD1, and then we'll have more on how the mainstream media is treating RFK in just a sec. We've been told our whole lives that wrinkle creams were the easiest way to look younger. Now, one doctor says that's nothing but old news. According to Dr. John Lake, the world-renowned Beverly Hills beauty expert, most wrinkle fixes on the market are nothing but glorified moisturizers. They hardly make a dent on your appearance, and some can even be harmful to your skin, he said. Recently, Dr. Lake has focused his attention away from mainstream cosmetic practices. Why? So he can pursue a revolutionary anti-aging breakthrough, one that some experts say could empty the wallets of the cosmetic industry. His personal clients have dubbed his new do-it-yourself technique the age rewinder method because it can take years or even decades off your appearance in under 2 minutes. In light of this amazing breakthrough, Dr. Lake has released a step-by-step video to the public, free and uninterrupted, where he outlines exactly how to use this simple solution from home. The video has gone viral. At first, it was shared by users on Facebook, but since then, it's It's racked up over 2.3 million views and counting. So far, the comments and feedback have been outstanding, with thousands of women reporting they look decades younger. You can find out more about this for yourself. Go to bhmd1.com/Rubin or click the link in the description box below. Again, that's bhmd1.com/Rubin. Again, watch the video at bhmd1.com/Rubin right now or click the link in the description box below. All right, so the confirmation hearings will start rolling out, and hopefully most, if not all of these people get through. Again, the president, I've said many times, the president is supposed to nominate whoever he wants, and unless someone is wildly unqualified, has a body in their closet, has done something so counter in their past to what the current and future job is, you basically are supposed to allow these people to go through. That's not exactly how it works anymore, but that is how it worked for 100+ years in America until Joe Biden changed it, I think in 1988, during the Supreme Court nomination of Robert Bork. That aside for a moment, RFK has shown up for the beginning of his confirmation process. We've got this from Clint Russell. RFK Jr. has arrived in D.C. to begin the HHS confirmation/lobbying process. If you thought the smear jobs and panic attacks over Hegseth or Cash were bad, just wait. Bobby represents the biggest threat to the establishment, and they will respond accordingly. Well, it does seem fairly obvious. It seems like the Hegseth thing, although when he actually gets there to testify, it will all start up again. But it seems like they couldn't destroy him. Like, it just did not work. Trump stood by him. His allies stood by him. We'll see. It's going to be a similar situation with Cash. But Bobby, they can really sort of scare people about because it's about health directly, which scares people in a weird way more than nuclear war or some other stuff, right? And I think some of that is largely warranted with a lot of the health stuff we have in the country post-COVID and all the rest of it. Anyway, why might the machine be a little concerned about Bobby Kennedy? Connor, do we have a compilation?
Are presenting themselves to medical professionals as an arbiter of truth and as a neutral referee and a reliable referee of the truth. I believe they can be prosecuted, and not only can they be prosecuted for those injuries, but they can be prosecuted on the racketeering statutes or promoting fraud. So I'm going to do that as soon as I get in there. It's not, trusting the experts is not a feature of science. It's not a feature of democracy. It's a feature of religion and totalitarianism. But it's not something we do. Our country, to me, is still the greatest country in the world. And we have an extraordinary resilience. We have the worst agricultural practices in the world. We have the best regenerative farmers, the best organic farmers. If a foreign nation did this to our country, we would consider an act of war. It is un-American. We can take our country back from these industries, and we can restore not only our democracy and the integrity of it, most important of all, we can begin restoring our children's health.
I think there's some reasons they're worried about RFK. Do you think having that guy head HHS and start looking at what happened during COVID and what's going on with our food system and what's going on with our soil and all of these other things, do you think they might be a little nervous with good reason? And what will they do because they're nervous? Well, they are going to throw everything at him. We've got a compilation here from CNN, MSNBC, and Dr. Peter Hotez. You may remember him. We'll have more on him in just a sec.
RFK Jr. potentially being at the top of HHS, some of these other controversial picks and important health agencies under the umbrella of HHS. And what does it mean for expertise in the government if you have people leading these health agencies who aren't following the science, who aren't following what the experts have said for years?
Yeah, and I've spoken to RFK Jr. over the years, and beginning in 2017, and he doesn't understand the science, and I can tell you from my firsthand conversations with him that he's not interested in learning about the science. So
remember that there's also nothing new here. This is a person, RFK is a person who said that HIV did not cause AIDS. This is a person who was opposed to the coronavirus vaccine, something that I think most Americans would agree right now is a good thing. Mm-hmm. And this is a man who has made many very strange public statements.
This is a person who was opposed to the coronavirus vaccine. Like, thank fucking God that we had people like him What? That gets aired on network news is absolutely incredible. Now, Peter Hotez, that guy who dresses up like a doctor, he is, I guess, some sort of medical professional. You may remember this from June of 2023. This is Joe Rogan. He tweeted out, by the way, at Peter Hotez, I saw this tweet that you deleted. Now, Joe Rogan, before I read you the tweet, Joe Rogan had Peter Hotez on many times during COVID to promote the vax and all of these nonsensical things around masks and everything else. Hotez tweeted this and then deleted it. So here was Joe Rogan now calling out a former guest, which is not the easiest thing to do. He wrote, "Be serious, Joe. That's what you throw out for your hunting buddies on a weekend. A $50 million endowment, which you, Spotify, RFK Jr. can easily afford, not for me, but so we can continue making low-cost, patent-free vaccines for the world's poor," preceded by RFK's public apology. And what he's responding to there is that Peter Hotez was going after RFK. So Joe Rogan said, let's debate. He said, Peter, if you claim what RFK Jr. is saying is misinformation, I'm offering you $100,000 to the charity of your choice if you're willing to debate him on my show with no time limit. Really think. And then, of course, it didn't happen, right? I offered to throw in a bunch of money, a whole bunch of people. It turned out to be like, I think, over $1 million that he would have just gotten to his favorite charity if he would have done it. And it's like, think about this. All Rogan did, Rogan had Hotez on several times to promote all of that stuff early in COVID. RFK has some counter ideas. RFK says, hey, I'll debate this guy. And then, of course, what happens when the expert gets called out? Well, the expert scurries away. And then the expert who got everything wrong about COVID, he's still now on CNN going after RFK. That's the level of cowardice with these people. But what do they have? They have fear. That's what they've got to do. So what are they going to really ramp up? Because it's about your health with RFK. They are going to make it seem like he is going to try to kill you. Cue video of Elizabeth Warren.
Say goodbye to your smile and say hello to polio. You know, I would laugh if it weren't so scary. Donald Trump just picked RFK Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. This is a man who wants to stop kids from getting their polio and measles shots. He's actually welcoming a return to polio, a disease we nearly eradicated. But it doesn't stop there. RFK Jr. also doesn't believe fluoride should be in your water, and that's what keeps your teeth from rotting. You can't make this stuff up.
She is unbelievably horrible. Now, first off, she's doing these ridiculous blanket statements. RFK is talking about the vaccine schedule and that we should have more knowledge as what's going on there. As for fluoride in the water, there's a huge debate about whether we should have fluoride in the water. And you can also get fluoride treatment at your dentist, which most people go to once or twice a year. It's also sometimes in your toothpaste, which costs about $2.99. You can get a tube of Colgate. But it's interesting because she's very concerned about polio. So she must be a great, great woman. It's not like she's a woman who would want to just kill as many unborn babies as possible, is it?
In Massachusetts right now, those crisis pregnancy centers that are there to fool people who are looking for pregnancy termination help outnumber true abortion clinics by 3 to 1. We need to shut them down here in Massachusetts, and we need to shut them down all around the country. You should not be able to torture a pregnant person like that.
Psycho crazy bitch, that librarian from hell. She's trying to make you afraid that RFK Jr. is going to bring polio back. Meanwhile, she's calling for people, she's upset that there are places where you would get a little help to maybe not terminate your pregnancy. That means kill a baby. And she wants the government to force these clinics down because some people think that life is good and they'd like to help someone who maybe is struggling a little bit and happens to be pregnant. She is a devil-worshipping socialist lunatic who's worth a cool 20 mil or so. Let's talk about Rumble Premium for a moment, and then we've got some good news happening up in Canada. When Rumble first started in 2013, they built the platform for the small creator. They didn't censor or have biases. They were fair and treated all creators equally. No one thought platforms would censor political conversation or censor opinions around COVID, but they did. Facebook admitted they fell to pressure from the Biden and Harris administration. Of course, Rumble did not. They held the line. They're attacked daily for giving us a voice to talk to you. They're attacked in corporate media. They're attacked by governments like France. They're attacked by brand advertisers who refuse to work with them. Corporate America is fighting to remove free speech while Rumble is fighting to keep it. Rumble won't survive with brand advertisers alone. They don't get much of it. So watching our show is the number one way we can ask for support from you. But if you really believe in this fight and you have the means, one major way you can help Rumble survive is by joining Rumble Premium. Join the community that believes in the First Amendment and believes in our human right to free speech. Rumble is offering $10 off with promo code Rubin when you purchase an annual subscription. Go to rumble.com/premium/Rubin and use code Rubin. Like I said, if you have the means and believe in the cause, now is the time to join Rumble Premium. If you don't have the means, we're just happy if you watch us right here on Rumble. All right, so there is some really spectacular news happening in the country up north. I'm talking about Canada, the country that Donald Trump says potentially could be the 51st state, a country that also the Toronto Star last week wrote a big article about how Dave Rubin is one of the far-right people leading Canada to chaos or something like that. Check this out from The Independent. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is reported to be considering stepping down amid a crisis that saw his own finance minister resign over Donald Trump's threat to hike trade tariffs. Mr. Trudeau told his cabinet that he is considering either resignation or prorogation, the process of ending the parliamentary session, according to the broadcaster CTV News. The Prime Minister is planning to address Parliament on Tuesday, the report said. The episode represents one of the greatest challenges yet of Mr. Trudeau's nearly 10 years as Prime Minister. His approval rating, which was as high as 63% when he was first elected, has repeatedly dipped below 30% this year amid economic struggles, a housing shortage, and disagreements about the issue of immigration. Some senior figures in Mr. Trudeau's own party have also called for him to resign ahead of a general election before October of next year. Conservative party leader Pierre Poilievre, who I think is really, really excellent, and the Conservatives have a strange record in Canada where they just seem to be usually slightly less leftist than the lefties, but Pierre seems to be turning that around. Here he is talking about how it is that Trudeau has even managed to stay in office this long.
Mr. Trudeau is being held in office by one man, Jagmeet Singh. A fifth of Liberal MPs have written a letter for him to resign. His deputy prime minister has walked out on him. His housing minister has quit. That on top of numerous other female ministers who stormed out after his appalling mistreatment and abuse and dishonesty towards them. 80% of Canadians have lost confidence in this Prime Minister. So why is Jagmeet Singh making the entire country wait for him to get his pension? That is the question today.
Well, I got some good news for you, Pierre, because Jagmeet Singh, who is the head of Canada's new Democratic Party, that's what they call it. He is an absolute leftist lunatic. If you don't know much about him, we should have Jordan Peterson back on to talk about this guy. He is not a fan, to say the least. Well, Jagmeet is not going to play ball with Justin Trudeau anymore.
People are having a very hard time paying for groceries. Young people can't find affordable housing. And beyond that, we have the threat of Trump's tariffs. And that's putting hundreds of thousands of jobs in Canada in danger. And instead of dealing with issues that are important for Canadians, the Prime Minister is dealing with fighting in his own party. It's clear that the Prime Minister cannot continue. Will he resign today? Yes or no?
So this is massive. This is absolutely tremendous what's happening in Canada. Not only is he losing support from his own Liberal Party, but he's losing support from the coalition partners like Singh right there. And this thing is not looking good. According to Polymarket, we got some info here from Colin Rugg. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has an 80% chance of resigning before April, according to trading platform Polymarket. The move comes as more Canadian leaders are calling on the Prime Minister to resign. On Monday night, the Liberal caucus called for an emergency meeting where they were seen boarding up the room. Trudeau is in attendance at the meeting, according to CTV News. The chaos comes after Canada's finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, suddenly resigned, citing her conflict with Trudeau over fiscal policy. Freeland accused Trudeau of engaging in costly political gimmicks to benefit himself. Canadians know when we are working for them, and they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. So this is so absolutely spectacular, not only because Trudeau deserves it, and Canada deserves so much better than Justin Trudeau. But this is largely because Donald Trump a week ago brought him to Mar-a-Lago, said we're going to do some shit with tariffs because we're getting tired of getting screwed with trade. It's one thing when we're getting screwed with trade from China, but we're certainly not going to get screwed on trade from Canada. And it's basically causing Trudeau's government to fall. And the people have had it with Trudeau. This is great. This is about 40 seconds long. This is just a good old Canadian. I'd like to buy this guy a hot meal with a little poutine on the fries. Here he is going after Trudeau.
Prime Minister, are you going to remain in office, sir?
No, what gives you the right to continue? What gives you the right to stay in office? Thank you. You failed Canada. You've ruined our country. You're done. Walk away. You don't have an ounce of your father's integrity. At least he walked in the snow. You've ruined this country. Everyone around you is running from you. You're abandoning you. Christian Freeland, Sean Fraser, they've all left you. It's time for you to go. It's time for Canada to have an election. You're not the king. Okay, that's the Prime Minister getting into his motorcade. I do not know who was shouting those questions, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it wasn't a member of the parliamentary.
Not a journalist calling out a politician for being a shithead. Like, yeah, it's just a good old-fashioned citizen. If someone, I know we have a lot of Canadian viewers, if someone knows who that is, like whatever his favorite meal at his favorite Canadian restaurant, it's on me, let's make it happen. Donald Trump posted this on Truth Social. The great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. Her behavior was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed. Now, Friedland, she was absolutely terrible, and you may remember her. I mean, she was one of the most awful people as it pertained to the trucker. When they were going after the bank accounts of the truckers and going after people that were protesting and all that stuff. I think, if I'm not mistaken, her father or grandfather was a Nazi, but whatever, no one's guilty of their own family things, but it's just an interesting piece of context to that. But what I think is largely happening here is that as America rights the ship, as we return to competency and meritocracy and transparency, that other Western nations that have been under the shadow of this evil totalitarian ideology that has just crushed innovation and crushed hope and the dreams of literally millions of good people over the world, they're waking up too. That is what you might call the Trump effect, but it's not fully there yet. I don't even know how to segue into this properly, but there's this woman in the Supreme Court. Her name is Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she's a Supreme Court justice. It's a serious job. These are serious people, and they wear big robes, and they talk about serious things, and it's a very important piece of the branches of government that we have. Here she is in a queer Broadway play.
Female empowerment. Sick. I like it too. I think what I like about it is that I am having a very strongly negative reaction to it. Like I hate it. Which makes me think it must be brilliant.
Got this feeling in my body. Can't stop the feeling. Got this feeling in my body. I can't stop the feeling. Wanna see you move your body.
I did it. I made it to Broadway.
Isn't it odd that her voice even sounds like that thing? I made it to Broadway. Like, is that a serious person? Is that someone that you think should be making decisions over the most important cases that get to the Supreme Court? Is that someone, is that someone that knows what a woman is, Connor?
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I can't.
You can't?
Not in this context.
So
I'm not a biologist.
You know, in retrospect, now that we're like putting the woke thing behind us, and I know we're not fully there, but the fact, like boobs, vagina, like it wouldn't have been that complex, lady. But I know she got confirmed anyway, so what are you going to do? Like, you want to talk about a confirmation that should have been a disqualifying confirmation? It's that one. What is a woman? What's the easiest thing to answer? What is a woman? Do boys have penises and girls have vaginas, lady? But what's coming back is competence, and we used to have competence. And there's a guy, by the way, who's on the Supreme Court that sits in one of those big robes with her and talks about these very serious cases. His name's Clarence Thomas. You might remember him. This is October of 1991. This is a spectacular answer, and you might remember the guy asking him the rather douchebaggery question.
Judge, it's a tough day and tough night for you, I know. Let me ask, do you have anything you'd like to say before we begin? I understand that your preference is, which is totally and completely understandable, that we go 1 hour tonight, 30 minutes on each side. Am I correct in that?
That's right.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Senator, I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process. Not for the purpose of serving on the Supreme Court, but for the purpose of not being driven out of this process. I would not be scared. I don't like bullies. I've never run from bullies. I never cry uncle, and I'm not going to cry uncle today, whether I want to be on the Supreme Court or not.
Man, that is chilling. To quote Joe Biden in a not jokey way, well, I guess it's a little jokey, like that's a guy with a backbone like a ramrod. And he's right. He was right then, and he's right now. And you can see that they've always tried to destroy all of the good people. But what you've got to do is what Clarence Thomas was doing in 1991 that more of us need to understand right now, which is as they come after you, as they lie about you and slander you and make up just all the stuff, as they do it, what do? You walk straight into the fire and you never quit.
Never, ever quit. Never quit. I don't know if it's an ability or if you have it, just you can't quit. And I've seen people quitting. And if they would have held out longer, they would have been successful. I've seen it so much. I've seen some of the most brilliant people in the world that never made it because they were quitters. They were just quitters. They would quit. They just couldn't take it. They couldn't whatever. One of the things about loving what you do is that it's not work, and therefore you don't quit automatically. It's a lot easier not to quit. But you can never give up. Now, you have to also have flexibility, though. You can't necessarily say, I'm never giving up, and you got to be able to weave and bob. You don't have to go through a concrete wall when you can go over it or around it or under it or something. You have to have flexibility. You have to always be able to change course a little bit, maybe always with that same goal, but don't quit.
It's right. He's right. And you know he's right. And this has nothing to do with politics. Like you person watching this right now, whatever it is that you want to do in life, it is not going to be easy to do it. There are little moments where it gets easier, but it's never easy to do something good. If it was easy to do something good, if it was easy to follow that star and attain all your dreams, then everyone would do it, but most people don't. So why not be one of the people that does? Be one of the people that everybody admires. Holy shit, look at all the stuff that he did. That would be pretty cool. And it doesn't mean never change, but it means there's ways to go around it, over it. As he said, there's ways to do it. Have a flexible mind and go after something, but know yourself and believe in yourself enough to accomplish whatever you want. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is the American dream. This has been the Rubin Report for December. Oh, we did not realize until I said the date at the top of the show. Today is December 17th, 2024. I landed in Florida, officially became a Floridian 3 years ago today. I believe we have the video of us landing in the free state of Florida.
Minimums. Auto throttle. 300. Steady lights. 200. On speed. 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
Yeah, that's right. They let us. They let me sit in the jump seat in the cockpit for that landing, and thanks to David Sachs, who lent us his plane that day, because I didn't want to put our dog Clyde under for the long flight. But I kid you not, you remember, many of you I'm sure remember. I mean, I felt something lift off my chest at that moment where we moved, and we moved not only us and our lives and our dog and new house and all that, but we moved 2 companies, many employees, and everyone doing good since then? I got a lot of approving. I'm doing great. That's what he said right there. So that was 3 years ago today. So man, time flies. We leave you with RFK Jr. and postgame show RubinReport.locals.com in about 30 seconds.
If I ever find one of these lying around again, I swear to fucking God, I will stop being so polite. Get the fuck out of my sight before I demolish you.